Your vulnerabilities are part of you as a being. Our first parents, Adam and Eve, were vulnerable beings, but there was no danger on the earth at the time, until the fall of man, because it's after the fall of man that decay, mortality, and dangers became an everyday reality on the earth. Now, all danger will be removed when Christ returns. Until then, everyone that's born will live in a mortal body first. When Christ returns, those that are still alive on the earth then will be transformed instantly. That is, less than a second. Their bodies will be transformed to immortal bodies, and those that passed away will be resurrected in immortal bodies. So, that will happen when Christ returns, and the reprobates of the human population will be quarantined in the lake of fire, so no danger will be left on the earth forever. But Christ has not returned yet. So, till then, believers need to overcome, overrule, and anticipate danger. The world tells you that you deal with danger by compensating your vulnerabilities with control. That's what the world is doing. And it never works out, because you can't have control. You're not designed to have control. You're designed to rely on God for your very existence. And secondarily, you're designed to rely on other people. Yes, you're designed to be in transparent relationships with others. So your vulnerability as a human being is part of you as a being. There's nothing wrong with it. The world has many escapes, but it all comes down to the following. They want to compensate the pain they associate with vulnerability. Your vulnerability is natural, but worldly people associate pain with their vulnerability. So now the pain they experience because of their rejection of their vulnerability, which implies they're rejecting themselves, they want to soothe this pain. And they soothe this pain by chasing pleasure. Pleasure is nothing but the gratification of mental and physical impulses. You can experience pleasure when you drink coconut milk or something else that's sweet, or something that's spicy. You can experience pleasure when you smoke something, or when you inject drugs into you, or when you use cocaine. You can experience pleasure during sexual intercourse, or when you are dancing at the club. So pleasure is just the gratification of physical and mental impulse. That's it. However, pleasure is fleeting. Happiness is when you are at ease and at peace, and this peace makes your life pleasurable. So now, it's not your impulses being gratified, the fact that you're in a state of mind of ease that makes your experience in daily life pleasurable. That's happiness. However, the most superior state that a human being can have is joy. Joy is a spiritual state in which, due to the security you have, you see the good all around you. Even when there's evil around you, you see how that evil can be overturned for good. And due to this positive outlook on life, no amount of pain can stop you. The pain is there, but you overcome the pain. And because of this, you have no urge to chase pleasure, because you don't need pleasure, because you are joyful. When you're joyful, happiness flows out of you naturally. The world doesn't have this thing called joy. They don't. They're chasing after it by avoiding pain. And that will never work. We are designed to be joyful, but we can only be joyful continuously and permanently when we are in agreement with Christ. when we walk in His strength, which is our security. When you're not walking in Christ's strength, you're not walking in security, you will always look for some compensation elsewhere. That's why worldly people, at their best, they're happiness junkies. They look for people to validate whatever relief they're clinging onto. And this may work with some paranormal aid, but you're still in danger, because you don't operate in the safety that only God can provide. Because when you walk in the strength of Christ, you don't chase pleasure, because your experience daily is joyful. And because eventually pain dissolves, you don't need to numb nor soothe any pain. Pleasure and pain for worldly people are really the same thing. You have the disruption in their impulses because they are in self-destruction, and they want a delay in the self-destruction, and this delay is the relief they experience, and this relief is pleasurable. So pleasure and pain are the same for worldly people. For believers, we have joy and happiness. Pleasure is a very low form of gratification that we're not even considered with. It's there, but it's there as a result of us being joyful, not a result of us avoiding pain. Worldly people chase pleasure to avoid pain. Believers are joyful and happy, and because of that, pleasure will be there. But even when pleasure isn't there, we don't need it, because we have the excitement of being joyful. And the excitement of being joyful exceeds all the mental and physical pleasures combined. When unbelievers use drugs, or they are addicted to whatever they're addicted to get on high, that's what they're reaching for, the state of joy. But Satan has no joy to offer. The paranormal have any joy to offer. They can only offer an intense shock of pleasure, which they call a high. And this intense shock of pleasure will have a kind of a healing effect on your body, but eventually the effect will wear off, and you will have to deal with the side effects of this intense shock of pleasure. These pleasure shocks are the ultimate of what the world has to offer. They're not the ultimate things human beings can have, but it's the ultimate, means the highest and the best, quote unquote, that the world can give you. However, when you follow Christ, you don't need those pleasure shocks, because you are joyful, and because you're joyful, you're happy. And this happiness of yours does not depend on circumstances nor on the contribution of other people. Now, other people will be involved, don't get me wrong, but because you are joyful, the happiness comes automatically. And you won't even notice whether it's pleasure or not, because you don't need to stimulate your impulses to be at ease. You're delivered from that. So believers shouldn't be lovers of pleasure. Why? Because we don't have to. That's what the world does. Just realize that the avoidance of pain is the root of all addiction. Everyone that develops narcissistic tendencies is because they want to avoid discomfort by holding on to control. And it's this sense of control that they are addicted to that reprobates them if they don't receive salvation on time. So, always agree with Christ, then you'll be at peace.